Welcome to Legal Candy. I am your host, Attorney Candice Colucci with the Colucci Law Group, where we are giving you the sweet secrets of law. And now we are into the hurricane season, and we are going to talk about Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton that just ravaged through the Florida area and other states. And this hurricane actually turned this hurricane lawyer into a hurricane survivor who has her own damage. So I've ridden through storms before, but this was different because this was absolutely in my own backyard and my home. So today I have a very special guest on our show. This is Kellie Berg, a senior paralegal with Colucci Law Group. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. So you finally got some electricity back on?
Finally, after 5 days.
Oh, that's rough, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm feeling it right now. And it's like you go through the hurricane, which is one level. Your home gets destroyed, which is another. And then the aftermath of no electricity is a different type of miserable. It's a different type of you forget how much you appreciate having things like lights and AC and a refrigerator that works.
Yeah.
Gosh. And everything that gets destroyed in the refrigerator and the smell that eventually starts to happen through that. So it has been a devastating loss, as most hurricanes are. This hurricane's back to back, they were only 13 days apart, I think is how long they were apart, has created a massive amount of damages that spans just considerably an unprecedented area. We've got damage all the way from Naples, Florida at the very end, all the way up to North Carolina, and then deep almost to, I'd say, right outside of Fort Lauderdale. And then I think it goes to it goes outside of this outskirts of Georgia. And so it didn't really spare anybody. So it re-hit a lot of the people that Hurricane Debbie hit, that Hurricane Ian hit. It just did a massive amounts of new damage to those properties. And then it decided to come for the people it had never really come for before in about 100 years, which would have been Clearwater, which is where my home is, and then hit some of Tampa Bay, Brandon. All these areas who really thought they were pretty immune, right? They really thought that they were immune from that damage. And so I'm going to take you back to September 26, 2024. And when we were on the phone, and so we're on the phone, we are a hurricane law firm. Okay, let me tell you what that means. That means I always prep everybody. When everybody shuts down during the hurricane, our job is to stand up and to turn the lights on. Even if they don't turn on, we've got generators, we've got power packs. So my staff is always ready to work during this time when usually most things start to really shut down. And then also, as we've talked about before, is I'm one of those probably insane people that does do hurricane recon work. So we do sometimes ride out towards the hurricane with an actual qualified group of people. Don't try it at home. And we do a lot of emergency recovery work that during the emergency time when they've shut down all the systems, we help people who evacuate late, provide people resources where they can't evacuate. So I've got a part of my law firm and a part of with our partnerships with contractors and mitigation companies and tree removal people, where we will really go out into the hurricane in order to be able to help those people who may not have evacuated. And I get it. It's very dangerous. And we always say, don't try it at home. I guess I have to keep on saying that. But that was really something that was important to me when I first started having an interest in hurricanes after Hurricane Katrina, was to really be that resource for people during the hurricane and immediately afterwards when there isn't that many emergency resources there. So on the day so what ends up happening if you live in Florida is you start getting all of these warnings, and you're watching the spaghetti models is what we call them on the news, and everybody's talking about it, and everybody's asking, are you evacuating, right? Isn't the question everyone's going to ask?
Yes.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah. And how mad do some people get when you tell them that you're not evacuating?
I probably got about 300 phone
Yeah.
calls, most of them from the people I work with here saying, "Why are you sitting at home?"
Yeah. So it's very common. That's what you'll get. My family is no matter how many times I do this, they still act like it's the first time they've heard it. They're just like, "What are you saying? You're not evacuating, and you plan on driving into it?" And then you get those people, and then you get the people who are upset, right, and angry. They're
Yes.
almost just like, you're putting yourself in harm's way, And I'm like, listen. No one's coming for us anyways. So if we
Right.
had to call for help, no one's coming. So it's not like we're putting any of the first responders in any harm, because they do not come. Usually they shut down emergency services about, I would say, almost like 10 hours before it hits.
Right.
And then they stay off depending on how bad the damage is. They'll stay off for days afterwards. And some areas that are blocked off, they won't come. Sometimes it takes them a week to get out there. And so I've always said that, there is a level of responsibility to make sure that you are doing what is safe and comfortable for you, regardless of what that looks like, and not letting anybody kind of shame you into it one way or the other, because we've learned that there are people who cannot evacuate. There are a lot of people who can't afford to evacuate. And what happens, when people never think about, what happens with gas? Like, it gets out of control.
Right.
You can't even fill up your gas tank if you wanted to go somewhere. And they said that this evacuation was like the largest evacuation ever, like in history, of the counties of people that they evacuated.
Yes.
So I think the craziest number that I heard with how long it took to get out of the state of Florida was like, it was like usually from Clearwater to Florida, you can get out of Florida in like 5 hours, 6 hours. And it was like, I heard people were waiting like 11 hours, 12 hours, panicked, not knowing where they can get gas. But also people don't realize there's no hotels. So it's up for grabs of where you're going to go. So, and you're not really sure where to go. Right? So how many people evacuated into certain areas that have come to find out the hurricane will like turn into that area. So it's really difficult unless you can do this. Find out there's a hurricane coming and book a flight within a couple of hours,
Right.
and afford that type of travel, and then fly to another state that's out of the way. That's really the only way to kind of guarantee that you're going to be far enough, because there is so many unpredictable pieces. Like with Hurricane Irma, remember when everyone was evacuating and a lot of people went from Tampa to Orlando, and then it was going towards Orlando, then everyone's panicking in Orlando, trying to leave Orlando. And the worst thing that can happen is you getting stuck and not being able to actually drive your car, and there'd be flash flooding and those type of things. So I'm on the phone with Kellie, and my office knows where we are working until I don't even know when I say that you guys can't work. I don't even think I even say there's no work, because no matter where you're at, I still am like, well, you don't have electricity? Is your phone working? Can you answer the phones to help people? I mean, that really is truly, but that's really what we do. Our job is to be there for people when they have those questions,
Right.
when they're scared, right after a hurricane, what should they do?
I had a lot of my current clients call me and say, I have more damage. What can I do?
Yeah. Or the ones who have damage that hasn't been repaired yet from the insurance company that are like, what do I do now?
Right.
My roof is still leaking. My roof has a tarp on it. Because we specialize in hurricane damage, we represent the insureds to make sure that they're paid enough from the insurance company. There are a lot of times that process takes years. Takes months sometimes, can take years. So we also have people who call really scared because they feel like their home has already been compromised from the last storm,
Right.
and they haven't been paid enough to fix it. And now they're about to go into another storm, so they want to know really, what to do. And then we're also trying to figure out where are the areas that are damaged so we can make sure we get those emergency resources to them, because we do a lot of that after the storm. But yeah, so my staff goes hard before a storm, during a storm. And so I'm talking to Kellie like hours before. I think I'm talking to you like at like probably like 7 p.m. or something.
Yeah.
And where I'm at is, so take us back to September 26th. It's a Thursday. My brother was graduating from the Army in Georgia, Fort Moore. Thank you for his service and everyone else who's pledged their life and has given me such a new respect for the military. We're so thankful for everything that they do. But so my brother was graduating that morning, and so I had to be there for his graduation.
Absolutely.
Had to be there. And so we start getting all the alerts the day before. And usually we've learned you kind of wait until it gets closer. You don't really know where a storm's going to hit a week before. And you usually don't know days before. It's really like hours before. But this was a special one.
Yes.
Because it didn't really move all that much when a lot of them usually do. So the path that was taken only made a little bit of movements. So we're in Georgia and it starts showing that it's probably heading, it's gonna hit Tampa or maybe the Big Bend area, right in that kind of armpit, underneath the armpit of Florida, and then it's gonna keep on going and up. So I'm with my family, they're panicking. This is what I do for a living. So I don't panic, I get prepared. We have emergency resources, we've got storage units full of stuff, so like I am prepared for it. The rest of my family is not. So they're panicking. They're like, where can we go? Where should we drive? Where should we drive? I'm like, no, listen, I've got it all timed up. If we just get in the car immediately after he graduates, we drive straight south to Clearwater, we should be fine because at that point in time, the storm will be on its way and it will be going up this way, kind of probably towards Georgia. So we had a plan. They moved the graduation earlier in the morning, I think because they knew that people were really panicking and trying to get out of Georgia before it hits. And so my brother graduates, we get to say congratulations, and then we're like, you got to get in the vehicles, we got to drive straight down south. While we're driving south, everyone is driving north on I-75. That was in bumper to bumper traffic, just sitting there. The stress level of bumper to bumper traffic on a highway like that and the unavailability and limitedness of gas, I would not put that on my greatest enemy. Like, it is a whole different level of thinking about being absolutely stranded on the side of the road and how each other are treating each other when they're in traffic like that.
There were actual fist fights over gas.
Fist fights over gas. So we're driving back, and I am literally on a path back where we're going to make it back, and I think just in enough time. We're going to make it back, like, we find out that they're going to close the bridge to my house. I live in an island estates, which is Clearwater Beach. They're going to close the bridge to my house around 6 o'clock. So they close it early, and really it's because they want to stop people from going there, and they're anticipating the winds are going to pick up so they don't let you go on bridges. So pretty much they start closing off all the access bridges. They'll close those off. So you could leave the island, but you couldn't go to the island after 6 o'clock. And as I'm driving back, I don't find out about that 6 o'clock closure until I'm getting closer, and I drop off some of my family in Tampa area, and I was craving a Cuban sandwich. This Cuban becomes pivotal in this story, but I was craving these Cubans that are from the best Cuban place in, I would say, the country, by Busch Gardens in Tampa, Florida. It is called The Sandwich Shop, I think is the actual name of it. It is a bodega, it's just like a little Spanish restaurant, a little Spanish gas station, not even gas, convenience store. They've got a little hot bar, and they make the world's best Cuban sandwiches. They make something called a chupacabra. So good. It's got it's a regular Cuban, but then they put avocados, hot sauce, and some other sauce, and then they press it with honey butter. Get out of here. A Cuban. So I really thought, well, listen, if they're going to shut everything down, because I was not thinking it was going to come and hit us. With the way that it looked with the eye, it was going way out into the Gulf and going to come back in. So they said maybe the outer bands will, but we've heard that before. And so at this point in time, I had already decided that I probably was not going to ride into the storm like we did because of my brother's graduation. So now I was like, okay, well, I'll just head home. And then after we see where it hits, then we'll go out into the area and start trying to help people. So I was wondering if the Cuban place was going to be open. So I called them, and they're like, see? So they're open. Okay. And I'm like, perfect. So I go over there and order like a bunch of Cuban sandwiches. So I'm like, you know, stuff's going to be shut down. I should probably have enough sandwiches. And so my husband calls me and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm coming. He's like, listen, they're closing the bridge at 6:00. And I'm like, what? And it's like 5 something. Okay. And I'm like, he's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm getting Cuban sandwiches. I'm getting Cuban sandwiches.
Because that's what you do in a hurricane.
That's what you gotta have food. Listen, I'm concerned about the lack of food. So I'm like, I'm getting Cuban sandwiches. And he's just like, you better get over here before they close the bridge. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, and bring my Cuban sandwich. So I'm like, okay. So I'm driving. I'm on the phone with Kellie. At this point, there's almost no one on the road in Clearwater. So I'm like, okay, this is getting a little bit more serious, a little windy. And Kellie, I'm on the phone with her, and she's kind of, you're not really panicked. I think you sort of started at least like, well, I'm not going to leave. And I was on my kick. I was like, listen, you're going to be fine. It's not going to hit us. We're going to be fine. I'm like, you've seen it before. I was like, there's, just be prepared. We got to be ready to work. And I was like, it's going to be all good and fine. And I think the next time I'm talking to Kellie, I'm in 5 feet of water. And I'm like, Kellie, it's not okay. I was like, Bella right now, our French bulldog, the daughter of the office. I'm like, Bella is swimming in the living room at this point, okay?
There was a picture of her surfing on a mattress.
Yes. We've got a great picture of her. Literally, the water's rising, and she's just like stoically looking like, I don't know if this is supposed to happen, but maybe somebody should have been responsible enough to have evacuated with my body. And so, yeah, so it obviously goes a lot worse than planned. And so I get off the phone, I'm driving to the bridge, and I get to the bridge, and the bridge is closed. And so they've got tankers that are blocking the bridge, and they've got officers, and I do everything to convince these officers to let me go on the bridge. And they're just like, no, we can't let you go. We can't. And I give them everything. I'm like, I'll take liability. Just let me go. I'm going right over this little bridge. There is no wind, no rain, no nothing at that point in time. I just need to get over there so I can be with my husband and my son and my dog and my in-laws. I'm like, I've got to be over there. And just in case it hits, I really didn't think no damage was going to happen. So they tell me no, but you can try some of the other bridges. So I take off on this mission when I'm supposed to be shut down of literally driving to every single entry point that could possibly get me to my house. Every single one of them are blocked. So at this point, I'm like, okay, well, I can't just, and now there's nowhere to go. I can't just, there's no hotels, there's no nothing. And so I come back to the office, our hub office, gear up myself and get everything I need, because I'm like, I'm going to have to walk from the bridge to my house.
Including your sandwiches.
Yes. But what I make sure I bring in my handy dandy backpack is my Cuban sandwiches. Yeah. Couldn't do it without them. So I've got my rain boots on, my emergency backpack that's got everything that we normally use. So I've got flashlights, I've got a knife if I need it. I've got just first aid kit. I've got all of that stuff. And I've got a raincoat. Get my raincoat on, get my rain boots, got my backpack, and then I have a plastic bag, because that's one thing I thought was going to be really safe. I've got a plastic bag that's got the sandwiches in it. Okay, because I plan on bringing them to my husband, who has found out now that I am stuck on the other side of the bridge and is fit to be tied, as you can imagine. And my parents and my aunt all keep on FaceTiming me, and they're just like, and I'm like, I'm going to have to just go. I'm going to just walk. I'm just going to walk there, And so I'm like, I'll be fine. By that time, now it's raining and now it's windy, and they're saying that there's flooding on the other side of the bridge. And I'm like, there's no way. I can't just stay here. I have got to get home and make sure everybody, like, this is what I do. I'm like, I ride through storms. I'm going to make sure everybody in my neighborhood's safe. People who may haven't evacuated. I need to make sure my own family's safe. And so my husband's now sending me pictures of the water that's now coming into the house. And I'm like, okay, I got to go. I couldn't even believe the water was coming. I was just like, I cannot believe this is really happening. And there isn't really that much wind and rain at this point in time. So I start my walk from over the bridge all the way to my house. And by the time I get on the top of that bridge, it is raining and the wind is so intense that I'm like having to like hold on to the side railing. And I'm like, I still have to keep on going. So we get to the other side of the bridge, and at that point in time, there's about 2.5 feet of water, 3 feet of water, and I'm going through it. And it's really, truly can be dangerous because you don't know what's in the water. But I'll tell you what made this water even more interesting, because I've done the high water before, like at Hurricane Ian. This was different because we live on a canal, and what I realized was there was these mini bridges to the streets of my house, and the mini bridge has a canal water underneath it. So when I start walking, and now we're at about like 3.5 feet of water, 4 feet of water, I remember that there was a bridge there. So at that point, I realized I'm one and one with the ocean. So whatever may be swimming in the ocean could possibly be swimming where I'm walking. And that's the only thing that started to panic me, was the fact that I've got a real fear of sharks. And I think we talked about it at Hurricane Ian, when we were out there helping them at Hurricane Ian, not too far from where we were at, like in very deep water. We found out that there was a shark that was in like a neighborhood backyard. And so I was like, that's literally what my fear looks like at that point in time. So I keep on going, and the entire street, you can't even see the mailboxes. All of my neighbors, anybody who had a first floor house, the house is just partially halfway underwater. The cars, I see rooftops of cars. And we've dealt with this damage before, but it is a different level when it's in your backyard. Do you know what I mean? Like that feeling of it being right there. And I say our office is a lot of giving back to the community, helping people through afterwards, and then dealing with their insurance claim. So I always felt like we had empathy, but going through it now, how's it made you feel?
Oh, it's really opened my eyes to the way these people, their emotions and everything that they've lost.
Yeah.
And I know it has you, because you have lost everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It is, and you know what's interesting is that, and I can't even say that I can compare it to a regular person having this type of loss, because since I do this for a living, it was literally like I got to go into complete work mode. My mind went straight to, here's the solutions. I know what we can do. I know how to get the team out there. I know exactly what I need to do during. I know what I need to do afterwards. So my level of kind of emotional stability was a different level than someone who really didn't know. And it really did shock me. I thought, and when the water was rising to the house, that one was one thing, because I always feel like, okay, well, I just got to worry about my dog at this point in time. Like that was really it. I'm like, we're going to be okay because we can float. Like as an adult, you can get on top of something, the water keeps on going, just, get outside. So it's definitely very dangerous, but my panic was really for my dog at that point in time.
Right.
And my husband, as I'm trying to get to my husband, he's still calling me for the phones have gotten out, and he's like, where are we going to go now? It's still rising. I'm like, you're going to have to get on top of a countertop. He's like, what are we going to do? And all he keeps on saying is, everything is destroyed. Everything is destroyed. And what I realized for my husband was how many people that your home is your pride. Like that is what you've worked so hard for. And from everything to the flowers that we've planted, to the cars and the clothes that you have, and the toys, your children's keepsakes and heirlooms from your family members. Like you don't realize the value you place on those things until they're gone.
That's your safety zone.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden something has taken away all your safety.
Yeah. Yeah. And so afterwards, what I know, and what we've always tried to tell people is that the water that comes in through a storm like this is not regular ocean water. It's not the ocean water that you would go and maybe go tubing in. It is undescribably contaminated. It has it has sewage in it. So it's got feces, it's got dead animals in it, it's got bacteria, it's got mold, it's got enough in it that if you have a cut, it can literally create sepsis like very, very quickly, to where there's people who have lost limbs because of that, of being out inside hurricane water afterwards. And so there is a level of just like, the water is so vile. The smell of it, the feel of it, it is nothing like people think, like, oh, well, it's just ocean water. It is absolutely not. And so time is of the essence of how fast you can get that water out in order to see if there's anything that you can save. And what I learned from now going through with my own things are, there isn't much you can save at all. And how many times when we're handling these claims does an insurance company say that you could save your contents and personal property?
Oh, yeah. It's a constant thing.
All the time.
They still want to depreciate it,
Yep.
a percentage.
Yep.
But you can save it. It may smell.
Yeah.
And it may be contaminated,
Yep.
but by God, you could use it again.
Yep. They'll tell you, like, all the furniture that gets thrown out, all of those things, the clothes and those kind of things. There's so many times they argue about what the value is. Was it really damaged? Could you have saved it? How many times did you attempt to try to wash it? What evidence do you have that you sent it all to dry cleaning and that it couldn't get clean? What evidence do you have that this bedroom set that was 4 feet underwater is truly destroyed? We have dealt with so many of those fights. And so I already went straight into my mind as like attorney mind who does property damage insurance claims. And I'm literally like, what can I save? I start picking every single thing up, putting it as high as I can, wringing things out. I mean, literally thinking, what is it that I can save? And trying to get as much water out of the house as possible. And at this point in time, it's about 1 o'clock in the morning. And a lot of the people in our neighborhood, because we are on the water, they had evacuated, but there are a lot of people that are there. And so one of the other things that happens is that it's very common for there to be mini tornadoes inside of the storm, but also for there to be fires. So that happens because you've got all this electrical that's now getting wet, and then things start to catch on fire. So I truly felt at that point in time at like 1 a.m., I was maybe the only person up in my neighborhood. My husband was already like, everything's gone. I need to go to sleep. And he's laying on I'm talking soaked bed. When he sits on it, all the water comes crashing out of it because now the water has started to recede. He puts a bunch of blankets down and he lays on it. He's already mentally like, there's nothing I can do at this point in time. He was so overly stressed, and he is the man that never evacuates.
Right,
and now
never.
has said, I will never stay again during a hurricane. Like during Irma, my great-grandmother almost had a heart attack because he literally sent a video to our family group where he was barbecuing when they were like, this is going to be the worst hurricane you've ever seen. You better get out. And he was outside like barbecuing. And so he never evacuates. And because he's one of those people that doesn't want to leave his home. Like those are his things. And so now he has said, never, ever again. Well, he says that the anxiety that he was feeling was undescribable, especially with the fact that we've got a child and a dog, another child, and having to worry about those people also was such an undescribable fear that he was having there, from a man that is pretty much the strongest man I know, who's saying, I'll never ever do that again. So he's like, there's nothing we can do now. I'm going to bed. There's no way I could sleep. I was like, there's no way. I'm still trying to figure out what I can do. I'm testing all the vehicles, trying to see if anything will start. Nothing will start. All the cars that are underwater won't start. And that's when I'm like staying outside. And that's when I like see like literally like a little ash piece, like an ash piece just like comes, dun, 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 and then it like lands on my arm and it's on fire. And that's when I like go outside of the house, inside the house. I go outside the house. That's where I see a house in the back of from where we're at is on fire, just completely burning. Remember, there's no emergency services that are coming at this point in time. Then I smell fire again, and then I go another street, and there is another house that's on fire in the garage. That was because an electric car burned, and then the house behind us just must have been the electricity. And so everyone's still sleeping. I'm still surprised that everybody's still asleep. And so then like I'm on a bicycle. That's the only thing that we have that works, to try to see, is this fire going to spread to the neighbors? Are there people in the houses nearby? And so it's so many things that are happening all at one time, that literally, because of my mindset, I go straight into like work mode of who can I help as people need my help. And then when you start to assess the level of damage that you see everywhere around you, it's such a tragedy. Lives were lost during it. But the weird feeling about all of your damage that happens to your home. So almost every single thing inside the house was destroyed, and all the furniture, the clothes, the shoes, everything. It's all gone. It felt so weird. It felt to me like I had been robbed. Like that feeling that someone had taken something from me that wasn't theirs, and I didn't expect to feel that way.
Well, it's out of your control.
Yeah.
It's like being in a dream and
Yeah.
you see, people taking your things, and
Yep.
and you can't say anything.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
the same
yeah.
concept, because something is coming into your
Yep.
home, your safe space, and they're taking your things,
Yep.
and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yep.
Absolutely nothing.
That is so true. That's what it is. I mean, seeing all of my stuff floating in the backyard, our jet ski was gone. Didn't know where that was at. And there were other random jet skis all over the place. There was boats all over the place. And I've seen all this before, afterwards and during it. But it definitely is a different level when you're in the middle of it and it's yours, and you think, like, how do you replace these things? How do you begin that process of putting yourself back together? And the only kind of piece of solace you sometimes have is, at least you have insurance. But what about the people that don't? And that's because insurance, the premiums on homeowners insurance and flood insurance are so astronomical that you can't even blame people who didn't have insurance.
Right.
I mean, I've heard people say it, that they're just like, well, you didn't have insurance. I'm like, most people can barely afford their rent or their mortgage payment or whatever it is, let alone to add the other level of now this insurance that, mind you, in Clearwater, I don't think there's been a disaster like that in 100 years.
Right.
So it's like those people didn't even think that they needed it. And so my heart goes out to just the people the lives that were lost, which is just devastating, but also the people who have that damage that cannot be replaced and that are now sitting in a place where they don't have insurance because there are not enough resources out there.
Right.
At all. I mean, what we're looking at right now, the distance and the magnitude, is what people will never truly know. It was surprising it was this much on the news.
Right.
And I think something about it, obviously, because there was a one right afterwards. But you'll never really truly be able to fathom the level of damage, how far out it goes, and how many people have been devastated financially that will never recover from that.
Right.
Never. I mean, how many jobs are not open right now because of the business is down? Most people live paycheck to paycheck, and most people a lot of people don't have insurance. And when you lose the type of stuff that they lost with this type of flooding, it's not like a hurricane where maybe you lost the roof and some waters come in and it's still potentially livable. Or even then, the rain that comes in through your roof on a hurricane claim, most of the times, it's considered contaminated water, but it's nothing to this level. So you can kind of still maybe if you have to live inside it with some water damage, you can probably still make it for a little while. But this type of damage, if you didn't gut out your house, if you didn't get people in there to gut it out, you would have, the mold grew so fast within days. You couldn't even breathe inside these homes.
Well, no electricity.
And no electricity.
Nothing is circulating, so all it has to do is the mold is just going to grow.
Yep. So people need things like, so the people that we've been helping is to literally get everything out of their house. So if there's any saving the shell of your house, You have to demo and get out everything. All the furniture has to get out. All of potentially the part of the walls that were touched by the water. The floors that are damaged from the water that have water underneath it. If you don't get those things out, the mold will grow to where it literally can get into the subfloor. It can get into the actual wood framing of that house to where you may not be able to save the house. It's that serious. It's like an infestation. So there were so many people who needed help with that. So that's the very first thing they were helping with, is getting those things out, making sure people were safe, getting to them food and water and clothes. What it's like to now know that you have no clothes and no electricity. You can't do your laundry.
Right.
So sometimes you can't even find a single clean towel, let alone a shirt to wear or shorts to wear. And that's what we're seeing in the craziest communities that you didn't even know would have been affected. Like just communities all over that have flooded and had damage. So that when we lose electricity, everything in the house, in my house, has to start. We start the whole process of what that looks like, which we've kind of showed and talked about it. You file your claim timely. You start documenting your damages, take those photos and those videos, and then you start that mitigation process, if you can, as quickly as possible, to try to mitigate your damages so they don't get worse. And I have preached it over and over again about taking photos. And I'm telling you, the very next day, everything was blocked off. So you couldn't, that was the other thing, is they weren't letting people on, like into Island Estates area. That's a lot of places where there was a bridge. They won't let people into it. They start protecting the areas because they think that there's going to be looting too, that there's not safe roads. So a lot of areas are cut off. So you can't even get workers out there to help you. So it really becomes this community effort. So the community was really working with each other to help, mitigate those damages and help everybody out. And make sure everybody is safe. But even with kind of all of that, you're left with like, what do you do? And so you start going to work to do something. So I start figuring out what also can we save. So I start making this disinfectant bath out of this big bucket. And I start trying to put in like the shoes and clothes and purses, like anything that I can save, because I know how insurance works. You have to mitigate your damages. They may not pay for it all. And with things like flood insurance, it's usually the bare minimum of coverage anyway. So there's a lot of things that are not going to be covered. And so at that, I'm like, what all can I save? To where I realize I don't think I took enough photos. I mean, I really was like, I'm going back through my photos going, should I have been watching my own videos? I'm just like, did I learn nothing? I'm thinking, did I even take a photo of that? And things were like, I have a lot of stuff that floated up that were in my backyard, and because I was on the canal, floated right out, like right off into the ocean to be swept away. I watched stuff just float away while I'm watching it. I'm going, I didn't even take a photo or video of it. I'm just seeing it kind of just like float off into the abyss, like furniture pieces, clothes, shoes, my son's old toys, like are just kind of like floating away. And so it really creates this level of uncomfortability and uncertainty, because you really don't know. As much as we try to educate people, you're not really sure what all should you be doing. Are you doing too much, or have you done too little? And how do you physically do that when the resources become unimaginably limited, right? There isn't very many people who can assist. Like how many posts, how many people are going to be asking for help for so long, and the world will forget about them. That's what we know about storms like this that happen. Are that worry about the resources. The older people, it is,
who do not have resources.
Yeah,
who are sitting in a house right now that have not done any mitigation because they don't have insurance.
Yep.
And they're breathing in that mold.
Yep.
They've got water coming in because their roof is bad.
Yep.
And they've got nobody.
Yeah, and that is so scary. That's why we always try to tell people, like, as much as you can, like, it's like, can you please, we said this before, this is the time to become mandatory reporters, right? If you see something, say something and let everybody know. Joining Facebook groups in your area, is very helpful. And how the community gets torn apart and then comes back together, just don't make the resources limited like gas and toilet paper. But how the community comes together it's a beautiful silver lining to watch everybody really try to work to help each other. But that's really what has to happen, is that people have to really turn to each other and go, I know someone who needs help down the street. I'm going to put it on this post. I'm going to let other people know, because that's how we're finding out about them. Like, I just found out, I screenshotted just yesterday another mobile home park, because these mobile home parks are the most unforgetted area that exist. They are the ones who don't have insurance, live paycheck to paycheck, even if that, and to lose their refrigerator full of food is devastating for them. Now add everything else that they own inside of those mobile homes. And the thing about mobile homes is, regardless of how much wind damage that happens, flooding, if those mobile homes get wet, they deteriorate into pieces. A lot of them, got Formica wood, there's no drying them out. They just will crumble. And there are people right now, as we sit here today, that are still in a place right now where they need help. So anyone who knows about those people, make sure you're putting them on those social media groups and helping to get those resources out to those people, letting our office know, because we're putting resources out into the community and we're helping out too. But those are really the things that people are not thinking about. And that's what really kind of like tugs at my heartstrings, are those people. And then in the areas that are really impoverished, one of the things, like, we do a lot of work with the Hurricane Recovery Expo, and we've talked about those before, is it's ran by Alexis Thomas, and she is just remarkable in the resources that she gives back to the community. And she has done so many hurricanes, and she puts together these meet and greet events where it is a place to give, that you can go after these hurricanes, and you can there'll be donation areas where you can pick up food, clothes. She will do literally Halloween events and Christmas drives, but also you meet vetted contractors. So you can hire contractors from there. You can get free answers and free evaluations from attorneys, public adjusters. FEMA will be there to answer questions. Sometimes the insurance commission will have people there that are answering questions. So it gives you this one-stop shop to really get all the resources you need afterwards, because you don't realize you don't know what you don't know until after a storm like this. But throughout the time after a hurricane, they're really focusing on what is the need in the community. And there's so many things people forget, like, when you have a loss like this in financial devastation, for parents, it's almost impossible to catch up, right? And so there were times when, like, we would have other storms that we would work where they didn't have enough money to get their kids Easter baskets or Halloween containers or Christmas. And so I would just always empower anybody that if you're seeing anyone in help and you can help them, make sure you're doing that, because the devastation that we're seeing right now after this hurricane and the hurricane right afterwards is looking a lot more like the devastation we've seen at Hurricane Katrina, which was just mind blowing with that kind of flooding and damages. But now what became so just mind blowing is that we had Hurricane Helene, right? So everyone's like just trying to get their bearings from that, and there's a couple of areas that are like, whew, it spared us, it didn't hit us. And so we're still trying to rebuild after that. And then all of a sudden we get the alert that Hurricane Milton is coming. And once again, in my mind, I'm like, no way. There's no way another one would come and hit us, right afterwards. And that's the one where people really got scared, is because they had already now gone through one that they underestimated. And so now the evacuation was just even more intense. There was another run on gas and resources. And the fear level just became completely out of control with the people in the area. And now when there already was no hotels from the prior hurricane, and people couldn't already come back because their homes had been destroyed, there was nowhere else to go. And so people were evacuating. And really, I remember people saying they weren't sure where they were going to go at all. They were just going to drive until they couldn't drive anymore and just sleep in their car, because you didn't know what you were going to do. And so Then that one came through, and that one did damage right afterwards. And so it's just like, I don't know what's happening in the world, because I always say I'm not really knowledgeable when it comes to global warming and all that stuff. And we've talked about the conspiracy theories. We were just talking about what some of those look like, about if there's some manufacturing going on and all those other stuff. But whatever it is, and whoever we've made mad, it doesn't seem like there's any stopping when it comes to these natural events.
Right. And we got a possible third one coming.
It's
Nadine.
Oh, it's just like, I can't even think about it. And the part, it's like, we've always wanted to make sure that we've got insurance, and protecting the insurance industry is something that we've done. Even as attorneys who fight for insureds against insurance companies, we always stand behind honest claims. And if it's not a claim, we'll be the first to tell you it's not worth it. Don't file a claim, or maybe rescind the claim, because we want to preserve that insurance industry. And that's what really made insurance rates so bad in Florida. It wasn't the attorneys or the contractors or any of those stuff. It was the fact that we were in an area that was peppered with so many storms back to back. That's it. And now where are we going to be at? We already had an issue with policy premiums before this. And now you're talking about 2 major hurricanes back to back. And then I heard that FEMA said that there was a statement from FEMA or somebody, a representative, that said that they didn't think that they'll make it financially through another storm. And then I heard them say, well, that then they can go back for more money and those kind of things. But the FEMA resources are so limited that a bunch of people are what? Getting denied?
I got denied.
And what did you get denied for?
I got denied because I had over $300 worth of food. My insurance company said I did have renter's insurance. They said it was under deductible, which is always my favorite words. And then FEMA denied me because I didn't have any real damage.
And let's talk about what those resources look like. Is when people think, well, there's FEMA, there's the Red Cross, there's these kind of things. The money is so limited that most people never see it. That's the sad part about it. And I'm not going to try to get into what the politics behind it or what the governor or the president should be doing. I try to stay in my lane over here. But there is not enough resources to help the community. And most people get, like, even if they have a total loss of their trailers, we've seen people who've gotten just a couple $1,000s, and that's the most that they'll get out of it. People get denied, and there is an appeals process that I don't really know if it goes very far. The resources are just so limited, and I don't know what the answer is going to ultimately be, because I can see what the consequences are all the way down the line. I watch what those consequences are financially for the people who don't have the means to rebuild, the means to put them back to the way that they were at. And the trickling effect that continues to go, like these people in these mobile home parks, they now have nothing, nowhere to live, no home. They're homeless. There isn't enough homeless shelters at this point in time. And it's just devastating. And I'm watching most people who just really had never experienced a loss like this are finally shocked to see what other people have gone through, because they're feeling it really firsthand.
You know what I was shocked about? So because we're always working and I had no electricity, I was going to the Red Cross at Gibbs High School to, number 1, get a hot meal. Number 2, to charge my phones and my laptop so I could keep working.
Yep.
And Red Cross wasn't there. It was just 2 days. Red Cross was already gone.
After just 2 days.
2 days. That was it. And the only people there were some homeless, and I didn't feel comfortable, so I left. But Uber, for 2 miles, charged me $47. One way.
The surge prices on Uber.
Yeah. Charged me $47. And then because I only stayed there a few minutes, I had to get another Uber back. So it was just, to me, it's gouging.
Yeah. Oh, there's tons of people. And that's the other thing. So what's the aftermath is that, and what we try to educate people about is just being really cautious and careful, because that is exactly what happened, is that there are people who take advantage of the situation, and they start to gouge people. They start to overcharge them for things like TARP and and they start getting them to contracts, and they start getting them to do work that may not be covered by their insurance company. So there's all these horrible side effects that happens afterwards. But it's something like that. The resources are just not there.
Right.
And it's like, we may not be able to stop these natural disasters. And even if, and people going, well, had you evacuated or not, what's going to make the difference? We're not talking about the people who stay there. We're talking about the damage that it's caused. And can we, as a country and a government, are we able to support the people that are going through these kind of things? And what does that look like going forward? Because it doesn't seem like it's going to be slowing down at all as we're watching another one come here.
Right.
And it's at a place now where it's just like, my heart just is really broken for the people that I know that can never rebuild or get back those things.
Yeah, I live in a 55 plus community.
Yep.
And the ones, the apartments that face the bay are just gone.
Yeah.
And these people I watched the other day, this one lady and this gentleman, they're standing outside their home and they're just staring.
I know.
So I guess it used to be called shell shocked.
Yeah.
They were pretty much numb. They didn't know what they were going to do. No
Yeah.
renter's insurance.
Yeah.
And they just have their car and that's it. And they were contemplating, where am I going to live now?
Mm. Well, yeah, it's a lot. It really truly is. And it's like, and here's the other things I want people to really be able to. I just had a judge who was just phenomenal, who really said something to me, because as an attorney, I'm still working with no electricity. Our office has no electricity, and we're sitting here on generators, and at least trying to get the information out into the public. And yet the show still goes on for a lot of the companies that are not potentially in the same area as you. But I had a judge who really just mentioned, and she was like, it's real to have this aftermath of this depression and anxiety, and those things are a real thing. And the thing is I know them because we represent people that are dealing with this afterwards. Like, think about all of that, and then the insurance company that you did pay into isn't paying you what you're owed, and those are the people we represent. And so we've dealt with that type of that type of emotional reaction to it. And so, like, you've got to really give yourself that time to be okay with not being okay, and to not compare yourself to other people. And I know people want to say, well, you're alive, that's okay. It is okay to be upset that you lost items, that your house is destroyed. It is okay to feel that pain, even though you're still alive. Because everybody's at different levels of how this has affected them and what their recovery is going to look like. And it's okay to be in that moment where you have that breakdown, because we're all feeling that. And sometimes you feel like you're not entitled to feel that way because you had insurance. Like, oh, I have insurance, I shouldn't feel that way because somebody else feels this way. And that isn't true. It's okay to be at your level and your circumstances and to feel a certain type of way. Because even though I had insurance, I'm looking at things that I can't replace. I was looking at photos that like I can't replace, that are destroyed and damaged and can't be, and items and things that I had that were from my grandmother. Like, those things mean a lot. And it's just like, it's okay to put value on those kind of things that are damaged during this, or your home, or the drywall. Like, you never thought you cared so much about drywall until you're knocking it down. But it's definitely a difficult time for so many people that we've seen it happen before, but it just seems to be happening worse. So we're just praying for everybody that they're able to find a way to recover and to stay emotionally sane through this process, because it is a long process. So you filed your claim. We continuously keep on doing videos about what that process looks like afterwards. Filed your claim, documented your damages, and now you start working with your insurance company. You may have hired a public adjuster or an attorney. Either one of those can potentially represent you on a contingency where they come out and they assess your damages and give you an estimate, and then they work with your insurance company to go back and forth over how much your damages truly are. The insurance company does not always do what's right the first time. So question everything. It's okay to trust your insurance company, but if something doesn't seem right, reach out to our office or a public adjuster or some contractors and just say, hey, does this look right? Because that will play a role in putting you back to the way you hopefully were before, or finding some way to create some type of medicine to this type of loss at this point in time, is to at least be able to potentially rely on your insurance company. So we're going to keep on walking people through what that looks like. What happens when the adjuster comes out, and when you potentially have to get our office involved or another office like ours to help fight for you. And we're going to talk about the fact that there is a new law that has taken away statutory attorney's fees. So when attorneys like us could represent you for even small claims, now you're at a place, because that law changed just last year?
Yeah.
That law changed, and now it's going to be a lot harder to get representation for your claims. And now the money potentially comes out of the money that you're getting. So it's going to be a different world with how insurance claims are processed and how insurance claims are defended if you're not paid enough. And they also made it harder in the state of Florida to sue an insurance company for bad faith. So now the insurance companies are potentially emboldened by that. So we will continue educating you and bringing you kind of step by step through it with Legal Candy, giving those little pieces to try to make some sort of just strength through this time of just complete loss in so many different areas, and know that you're not alone. We are here for you together. I mean, as a litigation paralegal, don't know what I would do without you, Kelly. Like, Kelly, how many times have you been in the hospital in the last, I don't know, month and a half? Can tell you it's been a lot.
3.
She's been in the hospital texting and trying to demand her laptop before she goes into x-rays just so she can make sure things are being sent out. That is the level of dedication that I just so appreciate out of you. I'd be lost without you. I know we would, and I know our clients would. But it really just takes a whole team and village to do what we do. And so I'm thankful for you, and thank you for being on the show.
I'm thankful for you. You have really brought out either the worst or the best in me. Depends on who you ask.
It's the best. She's addicted to work, so I'm sure somebody tells her it's the worst, but that's what we do. We're never not working. We're here for you. Please reach out to us for questions. We are always available for a free consultation, and we'll help you as much as we can. And we'll see you next time.